New series ranking the best sports rivalries. This is just going to be college and pro North American team sports, so there won't be any teams from overseas or any individual sports, but it's going to be a fun series. Number 50 is not a current rivalry, but up until 2 years ago, it was amazing. Cavs-Warriors, they met in the finals for 4 straight seasons, had some absolute battles. The games were always intense, so it definitely deserved to make the list. 49th is the Sharks and Golden Knights. Now, I'm not much of a hockey fan, but from my research, I saw that this is one of the best rivalries in the NHL right now, so easily deserved to make this list, but I just couldn't put it any higher because since the Golden Knights are such a new team, the rivalry doesn't have that much history. 48th is UCLA-Arizona basketball. These are typically 2 of the best teams in the Pac-12, and they've had some battles over the years. 47th, Oregon State. These are some bitter rivals, and the only reason it wasn't higher is because over the past 12 years, Oregon has dominated the series. 46, Kings-Lakers. Not as big now, but in the early 2000s, it was intense. 45th is the Apple Cup, Washington State. The 2 in-state rivals battle it out every season, but the reason this one couldn't be any higher is because over the past 12 years, Washington has absolutely dominated. 44th is 76ers Celtics. This one has gotten really good recently. There's pretty much always a skirmish every time these teams meet up, and hopefully it gets even better come playoff time. 43rd is Eagles-Giants. These 2 division rivals have been going at it since they started playing in 1933. In the all-time series, the Eagles lead 88-86, so it's been super tightly contested throughout their history. The only reason this one wasn't higher is because the Eagles have won 7 straight in the series. 42nd is Villanova-Georgetown. This one really got started in 1985 when Villanova upset Georgetown in the national championship, but to this day, they're still Big East rivals, so they've had some good battles. 41, Red Wings-Avalanche. Now, it's not as good as it used to be because the Red Wings moved conferences, and both of the teams aren't necessarily as good as they were, but there was a time when this was one of the best rivalries in hockey. 40th is Oklahoma-Oklahoma State, another great in-state rivalry, but this one just couldn't be any higher because it's been really one-sided recently, and Oklahoma has another rival that's a lot bigger than this one, which we'll see later. 39th is Cubs-Brewers. The division rivals are pretty close to each other geographically, and over their almost 400 meetings, it's almost a 50-50 win percentage split, so they've been pretty evenly matched over the years. 38th is Chiefs-Raiders. These 2 division rivals have been battling it out since 1960. Of recent, the Chiefs have dominated the series, but over the years, they've had some pretty intense matchups. 37th, another great college in-state rivalry, Cal-Stanford. The most notable moment in their series history was the play, which you see pictured here. I think this moment right here is really what made this rivalry so notable. 36, Harvard-Yale, 2 of the best academic institutions in the world. They've been playing since the 1800s. Obviously, a lot of intensity with this one, but for me personally, I just couldn't have it any higher than this because they don't have the national hype around it that other matchups do. 35th, UCLA-USC. The 2 teams used to share a stadium, so some added bragging rights with that. The winner oftentimes would also win the conference and go to the Rose Bowl, so they had some really intense matchups over the years. 34, Lakers-Clippers. Anytime you have 2 teams in the same city, it's always going to be a little bit of a rivalry, but I personally think this one right here has potential to be the best rivalry in the NBA over the next 5 years because of all the superstars that have come to both teams. 33, Phillies-Mets. They had some brawls during the 1980s. The rivalry picked back up a little bit in the 2000s with some players talking trash in the media. But anytime you have 2 big cities that are division rivals, it's always going to be a pretty good matchup. 32, Clemson-South Carolina. As a diehard Clemson fan and grad student there, I know all about this one. We absolutely hate them, but I couldn't put this matchup any higher because recently my Tigers have absolutely dominated the series. Games haven't even been interesting. We've been killing them by so much. 31, Georgia Tech. Always some chippiness and skirmishes with this one, and they call the matchup clean, old-fashioned hate. 30th, the Holy War, Utah-BYU, another great in-state rivalry. They've been playing since the 1800s, so they've had a ton of matchups. The only reason this one wasn't higher is because, again, it's another one we see that's been one-sided recently with Utah winning 9 straight. 29th, Michigan State. This one's primarily, for me, a basketball rivalry, but also applies for football, too. 2 great in-state rivals that are pretty much always good, so it's really fun matchups every time they go up against each other. 28th, Wisconsin-Minnesota. They've been playing since 1890, and the winner takes home an axe. Now, of recent, Wisconsin's dominated the series, but Minnesota's a team on the rise, so I think this rivalry is only going to get better. 27th, Eagles-Cowboys. I don't even have to explain this one. The 2 division rivals go at it every time they play. Always a fun game to watch. 26, Penguins-Capitals. Again, I don't watch much hockey, so I apologize if this is a bad placement for this one, but I know they're huge rivals. The only reason I didn't have it higher is because the Penguins have another rival that I think is bigger than this one. 25th, Florida State-Miami, in-state conference rivals. Always a good matchup, just not any higher because Florida State has another rival that I think is bigger than Miami. 24th, Pitt, West Virginia. Also applies for basketball, but it's mainly a football rivalry. The 2 schools are very similar programs, close in proximity, and every time they play, it gets pretty chippy. 23, Pistons-Bulls. This one was amazing in the 80s and 90s. Not really much of one now, but how good it was back then carried it this far. These games used to be super intense. 22, Ole Miss-Mississippi State. Now, I don't watch a ton of SEC football, but I make sure I watch the Egg Bowl every year because there's pretty much a fight every single season in this matchup. 21, Kansas State. This is a basketball and football rivalry, but the absolute craziness that occurred this year in their basketball matchup made this one deserve to be this high. 20th, Florida State. Two really good programs, in-state rivals. Typically one or both of these teams are ranked pretty highly, so the game always has a lot of meaning to it. Lots of skirmishes in these. These are fun. 19th, Notre Dame-USC. Two of the most storied and iconic programs in college football, so it's a real treat to get to see them play every single season. Usually one of the best matchups of rivalry week. 18th, Indiana-Purdue. The two biggest schools in a state that absolutely loves their basketball, so this matchup is always big time. Conference rivals, so the game usually means a lot to the standings. Both of these programs are super historic and iconic, so this game is usually massive. 17th, Penguins-Flyers, in-state rivalry, so the battle for Pennsylvania. And both of these teams are pretty much always good or at least solid, so the game usually means a lot. 16, Dodgers-Giants, one of the best rivalries in baseball. These two have been playing since 1890. They played almost 2,500 games, and it's nearly a 50-50 win percentage split, so they're really evenly matched. The best part about this rivalry is there's been tons of fights. 15th, Oklahoma-Texas, the Red River rivalry. These two have been playing since 1900, and both of them have big-time national prominence, so pretty much every year these games have national significance. 14th, Cincinnati-Xavier. These schools are like 3 miles apart and can't stand each other. This game right here, I will never forget. It's actually going to be my sports fight series coming up. But if you look closely, this guy is literally kicking him in the face as he's on the ground. These schools hate each other. 13, Redskins-Cowboys. These teams have hated each other for a long time. Not quite what it used to be, but still a good division rivalry. 12th, Oilers-Flames, the Battle of Alberta. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I know about hockey because I don't, but I know that these two hate each other, and it's one of the biggest rivalries in the NHL. 11th, Army-Navy, one of the best traditions in college football. They've been playing since 1890, and they get their own week of the college football season. 10th place is Louisville, Kentucky. This state absolutely loves their basketball, so they all lock into this game. Now, recently, Kentucky's been pretty dominant, winning 7 of the last 8, but all of these games are usually great matchups. 9th place is Cardinals-Cubs. They've been playing since 1892, and they can't stand each other. They've played over 2,000 games, and it's almost a 50-50 win percentage split, so it's been really evenly matched. 8th place, Bruins-Canadiens. Again, don't watch much hockey, so I don't have a lot to say, but I did do a lot of research, and everything kept coming back to this being the best rivalry in hockey, so it deserved to be here. 7th could be a surprise because I saw some comments putting this at number 1, but Bears-Packers, a great divisional rivalry. I just couldn't put it any higher because 17 of the last 20 matchups have been won by the Packers, so it's been one-sided. For the same reason, 6 is Michigan-Ohio State. Now, the hatred in this is unmatched, but recently Ohio State has dominated, winning 8 straight and 15 of the last 16, and most of them weren't even close. 5th place is the Steelers versus the entire AFC North. The best matchup here is probably the Ravens because those are usually the top 2 teams in the division. But a few years back, they had it out with the Bengals, tons of concussions given out in those games. And obviously, we all know what happened this year against the Browns with the helmet beatdown. 4th, Alabama-Auburn, 2 of the best programs in college football history. These 2 schools absolutely hate each other. So much, in fact, that a crazy Alabama fan once poisoned legendary trees on Auburn's campus. 3rd, the best rivalry in the NBA, Lakers-Celtics. These are the 2 best franchises in league history, so they obviously hate each other. They've had some battles over the years. Number 2, a very, very close second, Red Sox-Yankees. Everyone knows how much these two hate each other. Tons of bad blood here and a bunch of fights throughout their history. And I think the best rivalry in sports is Duke-UNC. The hatred and history in this matchup is obvious, but for me, what set this one apart is the fans and schools eat, sleep, and breathe for this matchup.